On the path, there are three fundamental qualities we must possess: clarity of mind, love and compassion in the heart, and strength. And of course, there's ways to develop each of these, or to awaken to each of these. But right now, I'd like to speak about strength and just zoom in a little bit on strength, because it's something that I find a lot of people lack. And so we have to be strong on the path. We can't be a wet noodle. We can't be a wimp on the path. You know, we have to literally know how to take a punch and to give a punch, deliver a punch. And by that, I mean we need to be strong in our body. So sometimes people will come to me and they'll say things like, you know, they'll describe something in their relationship, for example. And they'll say, well, he's emotionally abusive. I say, well, what actually did he do? Well, he raised his voice, to me, at me. And again, from the place of strength, someone can raise their voice to you. And you're big enough to receive it. You're big enough to take it. You're big enough to have a clear mind, an awakened heart, and the strength to handle a situation if someone raises their voice. And there's so many spiritual seekers out there who, it's like if someone raises their voice, it's like, oh my God, he was angry, or they did this, or they did that. Or, if it's internally, they're terrified to face their own feelings. And because, the outward world is simply a reflection of our inward world, we have to be strong in regards to our feelings. We have to learn how to sit with pain. If we're a wimp on the path, we will avoid pain. And when you avoid pain, there's a perfect recipe for the cycles of samsara just to continue to play out in the consciousness, in the consciousness of your mind, the movement of your mind. When you avoid pain, you're not embodied. When you're afraid of feelings, you are not embodied. You're not here. You become spiritually weak inside. And so we want to be strong inwardly and outwardly. And of course, if someone is actually emotionally abusive and you have clarity of mind, you have a big open heart and the strength, you know how to respond. And sometimes the response is you give them a kick in the shins. Sometimes the response is you walk away from that situation. Sometimes the response is you speak your truth. But most spiritual people on the path, what they show me again and again is this basic thing within them, which is simply the movement of the fight or flight response. It's, I want to feel good all the time. That's why I'm on the spiritual path, is I just want to feel good. That's not what the spiritual path is about. If you ever look at any of the, the ancient Buddhist pictures or art, especially Tibetan Buddhism, you'll see these gods with fangs. You'll see, Kali in the realm of yoga, this goddess ripping the skull off a body. So you see these Tibetan gods and goddesses eating the brains literally out of a skull. And the point there is not that we're supposed to be violent on the path, so please hear me clearly. The point is you have to be comfortable with anger. You have to be comfortable with rage. You have to know how to work with it. You have to know how to cut through that which is untrue. You can't be afraid of feeling. You can't be afraid of experiencing something uncomfortable. If you want to face ego death and truly spiritually awaken, you have to be bigger than the pleasure principle that's just always steering you towards that which feels good. If you want to be a spiritual master, you can't be a bunny rabbit on the path. You have to be strong. You have to be rooted. You have to be grounded. So this is why I teach meditation, and then I always recommend a physical practice to go with it. Yoga, Tai Chi, something to get you in your body. Martial arts are excellent. Jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, Aikido. One of the things I do is I mountain bike, I rock climb. I love getting outside, being physical, because it keeps me in my body. Now I can, go up into vast, spacious freedom, but if I'm not rooted in my body, when someone comes and raises their voice in my house, if we're not connected to our body, we tend to whimper, we tend to run, we tend to hide, we tend to collapse inwardly. But when you're rooted in your being and you face something uncomfortable, which you will here on planet Earth, if you haven't noticed, you maintain a clarity of mind. You can maintain a loving presence of awareness. And you're able to respond from truth, from strength, from clarity, but also from compassion. From compassion. Not from reactivity, not from, emotionality, but from strength and from clarity. And so a great question, to sit with is, what is it I'm afraid of? What is in my shadow? What do I see buried deep within me that I ignore, that I deny? I take a glance at it with mindfulness, and then I go and run this way and go get a cookie or do whatever we do to ignore. So what is it that's within me that I'm afraid of, that I know that I don't want to know? So what do you know deep in your heart that you actively ignore? What's in the unconscious within you? There's that old spiritual teaching, know thyself. Can you know the totality of yourself? Not just, your exalted spiritual nature, but can you get to know your unconscious and not be afraid of it? There's been great psychologists throughout the years who've said, all kinds of things like 75% of our behavior and our personality is unconscious. Some psychologists even say 90 or 95% of us is just a walking unconscious movement. The Buddha called this the wheel of samsara, that people are just they're just on the wheel of samsara, spinning round and round, repeating the past of what their parents did, or reacting to what their parents did, but not living from a place of truth. They're living from reactivity. But strength is the quality of awareness that helps us to sit and look deeply at what's within us. And to ask, is this true? This behavior? Is it true what I'm doing, how I'm repeating? Strength is a quality of mind that gives us the ability to listen to feedback. Because, this intelligent world is always offering us feedback. Where we're stuck, where we're tight, where we're tense, where we're checked out, where we ignore, where we deny, where we are unconscious. So strength is the willingness to walk out into the dark, to stumble around a little bit, to make mistakes, and to see what's there. So this great question is, well, what's within you that you hide from? What's within you that you ignore? This is your doorway to spiritual awakening. Because when you face these things, when you face everything and avoid nothing, then you become an adequate container for freedom, for Buddha nature. But if your body, if your form is just full of unconscious samsaric movements, is full of trauma and pain and PTSD and addiction and this and that, the truth can't take root in you. You can step up and out of yourself into the truth, but you can't embody it if your consciousness is filled with things from the past that you are ignoring. And so this is one of the gateways to non-dual awakening. This is how we move from being in a state of fear and actively ignoring ourselves to this quality of non-dual awareness called fearlessness. A willingness to sit with and to open and feel rage, anger, sadness, anxiety. And breathe. And breathe. And sit in the fire and let it burn. And realize none of it kills me. When you feel your emotions fully, they empty out of you. And what you're left with is this quiet, profound, strong. By strong, I mean unmovable presence. And this is what we all want. We want to be connected to the truth, the depth of what we are, while we live here on planet Earth. And so I encourage you to sit with some of these questions. What is it within me that I'm afraid of? What is it that I ignore? What do I deny? Where do I check out? What do my addictions cover up? What are they masking? What are they hiding? What am I afraid of? If you want to live as a Buddha, you cannot be afraid. Cannot be afraid of unconscious forces within you. You face them. You open to them. You see what they're really about. See what's underneath them. And you liberate them from your being. And so I encourage you to open these doors, to see what's here within you. And there will be voices that come and say, oh my God, I'm going to go crazy. It's too much. I can't handle this. You know, my fear was, I'll go mad. I'll go mad. And so I sat with a violent imagery, crazy imagery, bizarre imagery, as the unconscious unloaded itself. And you stay sane. You don't touch that. And see what comes. See what's here, beyond the unconsciousness. What's here, beyond the ego? What's here deep within you? You might find something quite wonderful. Quite wonderful.